I'm ready. Are you? Oh, yes, you are. I can sense it. We are all ready for the hottest podcast blending Second Life and real life. Boys and girls, it's time for the fourth wall with Paul and BK in three, two, one. Talk to me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fourth Wall. I'm the scumbag superstar Paul Slater alongside my podcast partner BK and his lovely partner Z. And BK, this is a big one, BK. We're almost a year into the making of this podcast, and this may be single-handedly, BK, the biggest guest we probably ever had.
I have to 100% agree because before we actually get started on this, we have to give credit where credit is due. One of our sponsors, friend of the show, Mad Mike, is responsible for this man being here. So first of all, we have to give credit. We have to say thank you to Mike. But beyond that, when this name was mentioned, I started fangirling, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, the man doesn't need any introduction. He's got so many accolades and so many things we're going to talk about. So we're just going to start out playing with his name, and then we're going to get into the rest of it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the man himself, Alpin Criss, in the studio. Alpin, welcome to the show, man.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
It is great.
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, this is truly an honor for every one of us because for a long time, some of the stuff we talked about, people thought you quote unquote died.
I mean, because
people thought you were gone.
Methods of death were.
I never heard that. I've never heard any of the methods. It's just like I think I was asking somebody one time. I said, "Has anybody ever talked to the man?" Because of all the stuff that we've done. They're like, yeah, it's kind of like the Loch Ness monster. We hear of sightings, but we can never prove it.
So no, I was gone for, what was it, 8-9 years maybe? I can't remember the last time I rezzed before this last period when Mike found me. So kudos to Mike. I mean, he did some investigative work. I don't have a lot of, real life social media. I kind of got off of that like 5 or 6 years ago. And so for him to find me, that was some real detective work. So
I mean, not only that, but Mike hit us up in our thing, and he not only asked, "Hey guys, can you do me a favor?" He demanded. He demanded we got you.
Okay. Hold on. Let me get my. In real life, I need reading glasses. All right, I'm going to read right here. I want you all to hear how this all really got started. Okay. Now, God rest her soul. We all know about our loss of Catherine, and we know that's one of the reasons why Alpin come back. But after that, this was the actual conversation that was left, and this was done on the 16th of October. So we're talking almost a month ago. Mike starts out, BK, I might have found your ultimate guest. Can you? And then he was talking. Then he asked me to help promote Catherine, which we agreed to do, and we did the best that we could. And we hope that we did help. He says, but if I can get him to, I might be able to get you Alpin Criss. But I just want to make sure that he makes a tribute show. So there's a couple of little things hanging in the balance there. Then that very day, just a few hours later, Alpin said he'd love to come on. Yeah. I demand you jump on this and demand you give him a good amount of time just to talk. Man, will be an amazing interview and is super articulate. It will be the best guest you've ever had currently. That was
really set the bar high.
That
my
was
response. Here's my response when he found me. My response was very simple. Second Life's still around, and then after I talked to him a little bit, I was like, yeah, I'm of course it's horrible to hear about Kath, but I was honored to be part of that event. But then I was like, well, I don't even know if I have my password to get onto my Second Life.
For 8 or 9 years, man.
That was the biggest hurdle, and thank God it was the same one that I used like 10 years ago for everything. So I was like able to get in.
Absolutely. Okay. So Alpin, you just said you were gone for so long, but everybody, and I don't care who it is, you are credited with taking SL Poseball Wrestling to HUD Wrestling for the first time, and I saw a clip of you about 10 years ago. And please, people, it was 10 years ago. This is just part of it, so please don't start bashing, all right? But you had an interview with Birdie. And one of the things that stuck out to me in that interview was when you did it at that time, you said it was you were amazed, you were blown away at how SL Wrestling had evolved. Now here you are 10 years later sitting down in a podcast, and in all honesty, with everything you did, you helped create this podcast.
Yep.
What is your reaction now that you've come back and it's 10 years later since you said that the first time?
It's still the same. I'm just blown away. Not just that Second Life is still around. That was kind of a joke, but it was actually a true joke. But no, just seeing, some of the faces that have stuck around, just seeing the size of the community, how it's grown. There are people that didn't want a bunch of feds popping up, but I kind of knew, at the time that the only way this would last any duration was if it was something that people could do, and the feds could pop up from here and there and form like a chain. So that part of it, I'm not surprised. I still maintain, having not been around Second Life a lot in this iteration, but back when I was in Second Life a lot, what I noticed was there wasn't a whole lot to do. You go to clubs, you go to, various different things, the sporting gaming events, that sort of stuff was kind of limited what you could do, and quite frankly, kind of lame compared to real games. So, after you go to a few clubs and listen to your buddies DJ a few times and you're standing on a bunch of dance pose balls or whatever, it kind of got a little old. So I've always maintained that the wrestling stuff, the level of participation that people can do on here through the wrestling is way better than anything that I ever encountered on Second Life. So you guys can back me up on that or not, but I really think it was a huge thing.
Yeah, people are passionate. People are really passionate about it.
Okay, so one thing that we talked about before we let everybody in here and before we started the show, one thing we want to get into is because, like I said previously, you are credited with us doing what we're doing today. You mentioned something in our little pre-show conversation that you wanted to get. Why don't you tell everybody the story about how you decided to take Poseball into HUD? And if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned something about the very first script you ever wrote.
Didn't write it. No.
Okay.
I'll tell you how, this some people probably want, if they want to know the real ancient history of stuff. How did we get started? How did this all, start getting off the ground? Well, like anything else, like all of you, I rezzed into Second Life and wandered around for probably a month. I don't know how long. I can't remember back then, but, just caught all the sites and saw all you could do as any newbie does, not knowing anything. And somehow I just, like a lot of you did, stumbled into some wrestling arena. Now it wasn't an arena by any of your guys' mesh standards. This was a primitive thing. Some kid named Icy Blackburn, or that's the moniker he went by, had built. And he was going to do a wrestling fed. So he was telling everybody that he's going to do the first wrestling fed on here. And, when he described what he wanted to do was, have avatars wrestle and kind of be like, just like they're putting on the show, just like they do in real life. I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool idea. I've always been a wrestling fan my whole life. I was like, let me see what you got. So he rezzed the pose ball system, and he's like, here, just sit on the pose ball. And so I sit on the pose ball and saw the first, few moves, and this blue little menu would pop up in your upper corner. I don't even know if anyone still uses that menu.
Oh yeah, actually, if you think about it, the chairs that we sit in, if you click on that, you still get the blue menu with the options.
Yeah, that's some of those animations we were talking about with the mud wrestling there, isn't it?
Okay, yeah, we'll get into that too.
I was trying to shift my sitting, and I was like, I don't want any of these positions in front of me.
Okay, so anyway, so using the blue menus and asking, okay, and
it's it is what it is. Like I said, I've been around Second Life to know that, that's kind of like what the thing was, the pose ball stuff. But man, he was going through it and he was so excited. He was like, this is going to be awesome. And now I'm not knocking it, because I realize there are still feds that use pose ball stuff. Yeah. And so, but I was like, I was so deflated. I was like, the idea, I always thought they should do, SmackDown versus Raw games. I always thought that those sorts of games should have done a mode where you're, instead of fighting each other and like taking each other's health down and trying to win, where you cooperatively call spots and then you like try to get a reaction from the audience and you get a better score based off of the combination of moves or whatever you do. So that's what I came from. I was like, that'd be a great game idea. And then came on here and I was like, well, maybe we can do something like that. I'm not a programmer. And as Mike will say, I'm not an animator either, but I'm just a person who just got on here and was just like tinkering with stuff. And that's what I liked about Second Life. I thought it was a place you could be creative and try to figure out stuff to build and do. But when we did the first HUD, it was, I looked at this pose ball thing. I was like, man, this sucks. This is just, you don't move. It was in the middle of this ring that he had res, which is, again, basic by anybody's standards. And I was like, you just stand in one spot, you do a move. It doesn't even sell the move. Like you get like body slammed and you pop right back up to your feet, which is something that lasted in every system that I saw that was competitor to mine. But I was like, we got to do something better. So I was like, there's got to be a way we can do this. So I started scouring the internet. Back then it was Google. We didn't have all the fancy AIs that can, do the scripting for you. And, I found on Blogspot. Do you guys remember Blogspot? This is how far back we're going. We're talking.
Oh my
Blogspot.
God. Oh, wow. Okay.
On Blogspot, I found somebody was doing a theater on here. They're doing like Shakespeare theater, and they had come up with a script where you wear an attachment on your HUD and you get like one person can basically use a gesture to call to all the other actors that are wearing this object and animate them. And it was basically, that's the problem we had to solve. It's like outside of pose balls, how do you animate multiple avatars? And again, I'm a newbie. I have zero scripting background. I have zero anything background. I don't even know how to build the cube that you just res on the ground. So like I couldn't do anything. But we sat there and, I kind of did the search, copied the script, put it in a HUD, and then is basically you had a wrestler 1, wrestler 2, because it wasn't sophisticated. You couldn't do targets. It just wrestler 1 always talked to wrestler 2. So just have two guys where in the ring and they just wear the HUD. Nobody else wear your HUD type of thing. Otherwise it'd animate everybody, So it was very basic, but that gave us the ability to start doing the actual, move. So now I had to pick up animation. I was like, well, what can I do to animate? So I picked up a free program, Avimator, and I, again, just learned from online that's like something that ties into Second Life, and it's very friendly and it's basic. And since I had no animating skills, I needed something basic to learn. I couldn't learn one of these programs that has like a million options. So started doing the first moves, and then before long we had a small move set. And as I was developing it, more people started coming to that sim and started saying, hey, we can do this. And I'm showing off the simple moves we had, and it just took off like wildfire. More and more people started coming to the sim. We started putting on shows. Pretty soon we moved out of there because Icy was a young kid that was in typical SL fashion for all the bad actors. He would take freebies and he would basically repackage them and try to sell them for like a huge amount of linden, and pretty soon the whole arena that we had at the time which was like a small room, like probably this size, and then it was just wall to wall his little vendors for him to sell these freebies that he stole. And I was like, oh, that first off, that's scummy, and second off, there's so much lag I couldn't even test the moves anymore. So that's when I hooked up with Ivan Halfpint and we moved to a new sim. And then he's like, yeah, you develop it and then we'll put on the shows. And that's how SLCW was born, right alongside the ACPWS.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't realize all that, but yeah, I needed that history lesson. So one of the things that, you told us earlier, that you binge watch a couple of the episodes that we put out. So as you know, nothing is unscripted and kind of where things go. So let's go ahead and let's talk to the man behind the avatar. You mentioned earlier, like I said in our pre-show chat, that and I'm just going to go ahead and say it because they know we do it here, that you have people who know wrestling and then you have people that know sports entertainment. you know wrestling. So that tells me you are an old school fan. So why don't you tell us how you got your interest in real life wrestling?
Well, I mean, I was born early 80s. I was born in 81. So I grew up during what would be the kind of national takeover of the WWF. I was riding that wave, with, New York taking everyone over, and you got Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan and all those larger than life characters, and that immense talent pool that kind of congealed up there. But also at the same time, St. Louis is the heart of the NWA. I believe it still is.
Yep.
So we still had those ties to kind of the historic side of wrestling. We had wrestling at the Chase, which is run by the NWA down at the Chase Park Plaza down in St. Louis. Sadly, they discontinued that, probably like a decade ago. The Harley Race, lived here for a time and ran the NWA out of here for a time. So we have a lot of history going back a long ways to that sort of stuff. But really, for me, it was just kind of, like everyone else in the 80s, I just got swept up in the WWF type of takeover with the national TV and the pay-per-views, and from that the Attitude Era. And then it wasn't until like later that I started really appreciating the older stuff. And it's kind of when I started developing this system that I really start looking at and seeing, like, kind of the difference between how things were and how things are. And as far as a storyteller, goes, I can see the benefits of the older way over the new way, especially when it comes to the in-ring stuff. And again, I was also an athlete in real life. So I kind of understand when it was supposed to be a sport versus when it's supposed to be, what I consider, Jerry Springer or like a soap opera. So I kind of
Attitude
prefer
Era.
it back when it was when it was considered a real sport, and they're trying to just act like larger than life athletes versus whatever they're acting like now, which is like soap opera stars.
Well, I think now
Okay.
too with AEW out, they're trying to get that back where it's like a competitive athletic event, and it is, wrestling is, but I think a lot of thing with wrestling, and I've said this before on the show, and I'm not disparaging AEW, but like they focus more on the, hey, look at these flippy moves and look at all this acrobatic stuff than the storytelling, which wrestling is all about storytelling. You know what I mean? Like it's about building anticipation to see these two people in the ring, where AEW gives it to you right away. And it's just like, oh man, it was a 25-minute match and they did 7,000 moves. And then the guy, like we talked before the show, like, what did he need to do? Bring a shotgun in to kill the guy? Because nothing else could beat him. And I think AEW's kind of taking that, bringing it kind of back to more of an athletic event, not so much a sport. Well, it's a sport, but more of like, they're really wrestling instead of actually focusing on the storytelling. Now, granted, they're getting better with the storytelling, but I think AEW kind of put a little, especially in the not this community, but the internet wrestling community, of focusing more on the moves and more on the star ratings than the storytelling.
Well, and to me, it's just the storytelling aspect. Any good story, whether it's a story in a book or a story in a movie or a story in a wrestling TV show or a story in a wrestling live event, which that's my other thing. There's a difference between pro wrestling, which was designed for live events, and what it currently we have, which is sports entertainment, which is designed for TV. It's designed for TV. It's designed for pay-per-view. It's not a live event thing. They do less live events now than they've ever done. But in my day, even in the 80s and 90s, those wrestlers are wrestling 360 days twice on Sundays,
Yep.
and they're wrestling in barns. Even the named guys are wrestling in the American Legion Hall down the road. It doesn't happen like that anymore. And I think that's a shame, because that's a huge shift in the way the sport is. And it's a huge shift in, I think, I don't know. I find more entertainment out of the old stuff versus the new stuff, for a lot of the reasons you said.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up watching NWA Saturday nights, Saturday afternoons, and I was more of an NWA fan than I was a WWE fan back then. But yeah, I agree 100%. I'm old school Jim Cornette guy.
Well, and with like storytelling, here's the thing that drives me nuts. And like I'm good friends with Mad Mike, and he'll cry about this, I'm sure, but I'm not a
I cry.
hardcore wrestling
No.
type guy. I'm not into that. Like, to me, why is there a table sitting under the ring? When I was trying to look at how we designed our arenas, one thing that we never did that I always thought you should do is, if you're going to have a spot with trash cans, well, then why the heck aren't there trash cans out in the arena?
Right.
Like, where's it coming from? It's like all of a sudden there's a trash can and everyone knows it's a prop. It's like, well, there's trash cans because you got to put up the trash, and there's trash and trash cans in the arena, and there've always been trash cans in the arena. So where'd they get the trash can from? Well, there's trash cans all over the place. Same thing with the metal chairs. I thought the metal chairs, if you're going to use a metal chair, it better be the same one the fans are sitting on. I mean, that's basic storytelling.
Yep.
Why do you have this metal chair versus the whatever chairs, theater chairs or leather chairs or whatever you have around the ring? Because, where'd you get it from? There's no other chair like that around. And somehow that's now a part of the story. And when you look at the old school wrestling and you hear like the guys talk about their matches or how they plan their matches, it all starts of, is this something that would really happen in a fight?
Right.
Or are you going to do all the running around and flips and jumping off the top rope? That's a high risk maneuver. They used to call it that, high risk maneuver. And now we got guys flipping all over the place. It's like, you know what? Like, it looks fake because I got to stand there and wait for you to do all your triple Lindy jumps to hit me. And it's like, in a real fight with a real guy, you're not going to do that. You're not going to turn your back on him even, or you're going to get killed. So, it's to some degree, I think when it was trying to pretend to be a sport, when it was kayfabe, when it was pro wrestling, the thing that made the storytelling better was the fact that they were grounded in a reality that was, this is a live athletic contest. You're going to do things that we would expect from an actual wrestling match, versus what you see now, where it's like, once you take those constraints off and everybody knows, that it's not real. Now it ends up being this thing where anything goes, and then you lose that sense of reality. And for me, again, as an athlete or former athlete, I just lost connection with it. I haven't watched a lot of wrestling recently in probably the last 10 years, just because it's just not a product designed for me. Not that it's bad. I mean, there's a huge following, and a lot of the people on here seem to mimic that stuff as far as the feds are following that pattern. And then you also have the actual matches and scripting of stuff is following that pattern too. So it's popular. That's why it's still going on in here. But I would do it differently.
I remember real quick. It's going back to realistic. He was talking about realism. Like, why would they do that? I remember the one thing where it bothered me so bad. It was back when the NWO. And remember they had the fake Sting. The fake Sting attack Lex Luger. And then they waited till the next week where Lex Luger like confronted him. Like, why did you do that? And I'm like, they've been playing off that these two guys been friends forever. He didn't pick up the phone and call him during the week and say, yo, what the hell was that all about? You know what I mean? Like, it bothered me so bad. Like, he waited all week to confront Sting. Like, you guys been saying you've been friends forever. Like, why didn't you just call him during the week and be like, yo, what the hell did you attack me for? And like, hey, man, it wasn't me.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's funny.
Okay. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Evan.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, you're into SL Wrestling. You started doing the whole thing, with the first, helping with the first HUD and everything. Other than the animations, what was the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome to basically get a working HUD that you all were happy with that you could put shows on?
Well, I mean, that all came organically, because once you have something good, you start attracting people that can build or do the things you need them to. And that's kind of how it organically developed. Once I started doing the animations and we had something that was working, and we had SLCW off the ground, and we were starting to put on shows, like a weekly show or bi-weekly show or whatever it was at the beginning. Residents started coming in, and then, we eventually got a scripter, Sugar Cube Waller, great guy, good friend of mine, when I was on here a lot, and especially back then. And, he's like, hey, I'm a programmer in real life. I can make this work better so you can do targeting and have multiple targets. I was like, well, that would be great, because we're doing it this terrible way. It'd be awesome if we could do, You could do tag team matches and stuff like that. So he designed the first, I would say, the first semi-professional version of a HUD versus whatever I threw together, which actually had the targeting system very similar to what we have today. It functioned differently in that you had to have a third object that you had to res in the ring area that would act as it would basically store all the people logged into the match. So he had like an extra piece that I don't think was quite necessary. I think he over designed it. It probably served a function in his head, but at that point we started being able to do the targeting on the fly and that sort of stuff. The ability to hit a button and miss. So that really opened up the system because now that we had somebody who scripted it, so it worked, and all I had to do was drop in animations, and then there we go. We were off to the races.
Yeah, and then somebody took your idea and evolved it, and then it's been evolved again. And I'm going to go ahead and let everybody know before the show, he actually dropped me a prototype. Apparently, Alpin, it looks like you're coming out with a new system.
Oh yeah, that's kind of thanks to the push for Mad Mike. I was showing him some old stuff when I first logged in, and my inventory was a complete mess. But I had all sorts of prototypes of stuff that I was testing, and yeah, we've been working on a wrestling system. At first, it was just a kind of like what I would call a wrestling animation overrider that would allow you to crawl around the ring, pull yourself up on the ropes, rest against the ropes, climb the turnbuckle. And I don't mean that by how we usually do it with the animation, which was something that I innovated. In the old days, we wanted to do high flying moves. It's like, how do you do that? Well, you back into the corner and then you just have the animation. You don't change your physical position. It just looks like you're climbing. That was the solution. And it was kind of compared again, everything else pose ball. There's no corner. There's no walking to the corner. You're just in the middle of the ring. So that was kind of a big innovation. But now I've gotten to the point where over the years I've learned how to script. I've learned how to do the programming side of this. So not professionally or anything, just tinkering on here. And some of the stuff I figured out, I think is going to be kind of change the game a little bit as far as people who want to do it a little differently. Because like I told you guys, when I first was trying to develop the HUD, I just pictured like a controller type SmackDown versus Raw controls. The gestures were just a necessity. I mean, I was just, how do you get multiple avatars to work? And we didn't even have the viewers with all the hotkeys that you guys can do now. That's a huge step up. But me, I always wanted something that was more like you're playing SmackDown versus Raw. You have a button with, you have all your physical attacks. You have a button with your grapples, a button with like your submissions, and a button with, whatever else. So that's what we're working on right now. Right now I've got it scripted to where you can basically take, instead of gestures from your inventory where you program them, there's a button on your HUD. You can hit one of the 4 directional keys, and while you're doing that, it'll run basically a note card, and it'll basically run a gesture just like you would out of your inventory with a hotkey. So you don't have to use a hotkey. You can just use that, which works better with the other part of the system I designed where you crawl around and you can do all the sort of movement stuff like crawling on your stomach, crawling on your back. And instead of just an animation, you're actually physically being moved around. So there's so much stuff that we've added to it, though. One of the things I recently came up with is a way to align your avatars. We do that right now with real life, but I've actually got it to where it's actually like if you played a game where you can lock on to a character and you can kind of circle strafe around them, that's built into the system as well. And when you match that with the follow type stuff that we do, you can do like a lock or hold and drag them across the ring and make it look like you're actually walking them across the ring, which right now people are doing with some very awesome motion captured animations. But with this HUD, you'll be able to actually physically do it in the actual ring. You're actually moving the avatars. You're not just animating it. Same thing with climbing and jumping off the turnbuckles. This HUD, you actually physically climb up the turnbuckles. You're actually your physical positioning is on top of the turnbuckle. You're actually jumping off the turnbuckle. You're actually jumping over the ropes instead of just making them go transparent or whatever, or non-physical, and then just stepping through them. So that's part of the stuff we're working on in the technology in it.
Yeah, Mike just posted the pictures and the videos and and I'll put them in the video too for people. Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so Alpin, being the fact that like I said at the beginning of the show, there's you have so many accolades been thrown on you. Icon, Godfather, which yes, I know I did some of those when I was posting our stuff. Pioneer, front runner, OG. There's a lot of things. So with all of that, what was your reaction? Honestly, what was your reaction after being gone for so long? You come back in and you remember the system you helped create, and not the one you're working on, but up until the point when you first came back. What was your first reaction to SL Wrestling had evolved? Because you yourself didn't even realize that SL was still around.
Well, I mean, one of the big things I noticed, especially when we were doing the, Mad Mike, of course, showing me all his great work.
Oh, my Mac brags on himself whenever he gets a chance. You know that.
Yeah,
That's all. That's all we love,
fantastic.
Mike.
His stuff's fantastic.
He was showing me his work and his animations, and he's actually gone to school to it now. I mean, I knew him at first when he was just a kid, and Mike, I'm
Wait,
sure.
wait. You knew Mad Mike when he was a kid? The dude's like 100. Dude's like 150 years old now, right? You just gave your age away. Anyway,
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry. We love Mike.
I think he was probably one of the ones that was maybe violating the terms of service when he first logged into Second Life.
No.
No. No, he got interested kind of as I was starting to, really get the system going, kind of the DCWF era. He started doing some animations as well, probably before I left DCWF and they stopped using my system. And then I think he also helped Eric try and design moves and stuff to kind of move past my system, I guess is what they were trying to do. Which for me, I thought it was great that he was getting into that, and then seeing later down the road, all the people, I mean, I've been to a few of the arenas and they have like their vendors up, like, there's thousands of wrestling animations on here now, which blows my mind. All the hard work, and I know what it takes to make an animation. So all the hard work and all the creativity, and then, just people just cranking it out over time. That was cool to see when I saw it live in the matches and saw some of the stuff at the charity event. That was, seeing all the stuff that's been done and the creativity and actually the really sharp work that these guys are doing with these animations and stuff is great. The HUDs themselves, I've seen them. They don't do a whole lot. I mean, they do some stuff more than we did back in the day. But like you said, it's kind of all based off of the same, gesture based. I mean, they added some stuff where you can kind of do a lot more with macros and that sort of thing. But when I looked at all the different HUDs that were released for free anyway, kind of what I saw was, the follow mechanics are the same. The targeting miss mechanics are the same, kind of the way you can save targets is the same. The technology's gotten sharper and you can do more with it. And especially with the real life viewer controls, that's the stuff Mike taught me and was showing me that I kind of, once I knew about it, I started integrating it into my system that you're looking at. So that's where you get the ability to kick someone and actually push them back, or you can kick someone and actually make them turn to the side, or you can actually circle strafe them and make them look at you and you look at them. So the possibilities with that stuff is going to be, it's endless. The stuff we're going to be able to do with the gestures and the stuff you're going to be able to do. And some people already are, because the other systems do have the real life viewer stuff built into it. But we'll see. I'm tinkering with it, and I think we can do something really special with that stuff.
So
it's also a little different.
Oh, sorry. So let me ask you a question. What was the transition in coming back? Like, how long did it take you to get back in the swing of things and learn how the HUDs work now and to prepare for your match with Mad Mike? Like, how much time did it take you to get, feel comfortable with it again?
Oh, I mean, at first it was like an alien world. I first opened up the Firestorm viewer and I was like, oh my God, where are all the buttons? But it started coming back. I'm like, where's my inventory? And I see my inventory is a huge mess. And I'm like, oh my God, like, where is everything? Do I even have wrestling tights on here?
Eventually 10 years is a long time. I mean,
yeah.
And there's no game like this, that I'd been playing. So I was like, oh God, but eventually it started coming back. And especially once I started playing around with, working on this HUD that I'm working on. we kind of use some of the features during our match, and it's like, okay, I'm starting to get where I was at and what I was trying to do. And then, just the wrestling stuff, that wasn't bad. I mean, nowadays with these HUDs, a broomstick can almost do it. You can script every move you want out of 3 or 4 hotkeys and just hit autopilot. Outside of the positioning stuff, it's not that much different than what we were doing. So we kind of went through a rehearsal on our match, 3 or 4 times, where we're just trying to get the positioning. We want to be here. We want to make sure you drop the chair here, so that when we're on the outside doing the chair spot, I make sure I exit the ring by the chair, that sort of thing. But as far as the match, I had written a very old school match. I mean, there were maybe 10 moves. There were, a punch was a punch, a kick was a kick. If you're going to hit a guy, you're going to hit a guy, and he's not going to stand there, and you're not going to hit him 150 times to get a win. It was like, no, it was maybe if it was a dozen actual moves, the rest of it was positioning, selling, and making it look like the moves actually hurt you, which is what I think wrestling is.
Yeah, I was there. It was good. It was a good match.
Well, we
All
had
right.
a few issues, but
Well, we all have issues, the lag, because you don't know how many people is going to show up, and then the transition time and all that. That's just an ongoing struggle, no matter what.
we had 2 issues. We had a hotkey mishap that, unfortunately, the hotkey was bound to like a minute and a half long chain wrestling spot.
Oh wow!
He got locked into that, and it was in the wrong spot, wrong position. It was supposed to be just like he's just supposed to stomp me, and it hit and Mike hit the hotkey, and it ended up doing this big spot, and he kept trying to break it and interrupt it. I was like, dude, just let it play. Like we're in it now,
Yeah, we're into too late now.
It's always the one thing
animations
too. Like the people who are watching don't know you messed up.
Exactly. But
Mike's really don't.
Mike's a veteran. He knew immediately what to do. It's just like for probably like 5 seconds or 10 seconds when we're kind of panicked, you're just like, okay, trying to break out of it. And then it's just like, no, just let it go. When it's done, we'll figure it out. And then the worst part was, I was using one of the HUDs out there, which is also why I started doing, when I originally did the HUD I'm working on now, I didn't want to do the wrestling moves. I didn't want to have it actually do wrestling moves. I was like, this is going to be a companion HUD and system for the actual systems that people are using that are popular. I don't want to fight these guys. They've been being used forever. But then I checked multiple times, and I fed my animations in, they kept getting eaten. So like, even before the match, I tested the finisher and several of the gestures and moves I made to make sure the animations were in there. We got out to the ring, and when I go to do the first spot where I'm using those animations, it says animation not found, and I get the error. I'm like, oh crap. Now it unloaded all our finishes. So the finish was gone, and the animations we had kind of made and preloaded to do it was gone. But luckily, Mike was able, he could run, the figure 4 was the end spot. So he was able to run an inverted one, which is a cool feature that allowed him to animate me doing the figure 4 on him. But we actually had different figure 4 animations. We actually had stuff scripted for that was going to look a little cooler. It got to the point where before that, I was just climbing the rope for the elbow drop. I was like, that's it. We're just going to do the elbow drop spot finish. So we're just going to go home here. But that's Second Life Wrestling. I mean, you guys know, anybody who's been in the ring or commentated or been in the chats, while people are wrestling in a ring, whether it's a lag, whether it's a misplaced hotkey, whether it's an error on a script, the fun of going out there is something is going to go wrong, and you're going to have to go, holy shit, let's get around it. And it's kind of like something you said earlier, Paul, where it's like part of wrestling is that's kind of the art, being able to actually deal with that stuff. And if you've kind of practiced without just using the mega spot scripts or gestures where it's like hit shift Q and you do 18 moves, if you learn how to do it by just doing one move at a time, I think you'll be more prepared to deal with those situations. So you're not locked into, oh my God, we're off script. Now what do we do? Well, I know how to call a live wrestling match. I'll do it live. And I used to do that. I mean, that's how we used to do things. And, whether it's a few people like Derek Colt, there's a guy who was on here a long time ago. There's certain people that could do it really well, and you could get in there and just without even having a match, just start playing around. And then you could you could end up putting together spots and calling spots and doing a match live. And to me, that's what I thought the system should be. That's what I thought we should be trying to do. So I personally am not kind of into the whole, let's make a, spot one is hot link to this button and it's 18 animations. I wanted a system that was more like, you can trigger a move at a time. You have your offense moves that you kind of pre-do before the match. You have, your whatever extra stuff you need, but you're not trying to do it all on autopilot. It's you go out there, you guys know what the finish is going to be. You kind of know a high spot here or there. The rest of it you're calling live. That's the way I saw it, because that's kind of how they always did it. And that's how, to some degree they still do it, I think, in some places, but that was pro wrestling to me, not sports entertainment. So.
All right, so let's get away from the scripting just a little bit, because the majority of the time we've been on here, that's what we've been talking, but we really want to talk to Alpin, the performer, okay? Now, I'm going to ask the question that everybody always says, oh, we know you're going to ask it, but yet we always get the same reaction. Who was your favorite opponent?
Who was my favorite opponent? Yeah. When I was making the system, I didn't really wrestle a lot. I had to be begged and forced into the ring because I thought it was unfair to be the guy. I didn't want to be the guy that makes the moves and goes, you're making me champion and I'm going to be the main event, everything, because I did this and I did that. I actually wanted to be out of the picture. I was a ref a lot of times because, any of you guys that do commentary or do refereeing, like that's the spot that's hard to fill. And it's like, for us, it was like, who's going to ref the match? And, I ended up doing a lot of refereeing. I did get pulled into, I do get pulled into matches. I got pulled into a match with Mad Mike and I'd just been back and didn't even know, didn't know SL was still around. So, people want me in a match. They want to wrestle me. And so every once in a while I indulge them. But my favorite person to wrestle, oh man, that's hard to say.
I think I got it.
Well, you gotta cut him some slack. He's been 10 years.
Yeah, I know. I know 15 years of memory. I know.
Yeah.
Tenzin Karu was a cool character. I think he was probably, if I think about like what I would do if I was doing like some sort of programming against me, like I think that was, he was the character that was kind of like an Undertaker, kind of like the, the big guy, like, the big heavy wrestler, the unbeatable guy. And they tried to do me as like the crafty heel, can I overcome, whatever his guy was doing? And it kind of did like a Goldberg run with him where he's just like mashing people. And it's like, well, can Alpin Criss stop him type of thing? Like I thought the buildup was cool because it's old school. You got this guy that's like steamrolling everybody. He's this, immovable object. He had this cool kind of biker looking avatar and he's a big avatar, and it kind of contrasted me with my wrestling tights and all that stuff. And it was like, I was like, okay, I can see this. This is like a good, water and oil type situation. So I thought that was fun. I thought our matches ended up, we wrestled a couple times, at like these free per-views. And then we ended up doing a few dark matches that were really fun because we usually did those unscripted. Him, but pretty much anybody I wrestle, I always have fun with because, doing something is what the point is. With Second Life, especially.
Okay, so now we're going to go move to the next one that usually gets people stumped a little bit. You cannot say Mike because you've already had a match with him, okay? Mike is not included in this. If you had your choice of one final match, who would you handpick as your opponent?
If I had a final match, I think final match.
What I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, you made it very clear. You left SL for a while, because we all agree RL is first, and we totally respect that. But if you were to get back into the wrestling, and then eventually you're like, okay, I can't do as much of the wrestling as I wanted to because of real life, but I want to go out the right way. I want to have one honest to God retirement match from wrestling, not what you're doing behind the scenes, but from wrestling, who would you pick?
That's a great question. If I were thinking, if you're just doing like just straight, just like a billing, like storyline, you want something with history, then I don't think there's any other choice than Eric Stewart. I think, we've got a lot of history. We were very good friends for a very long time. We kind of had a falling out. I think you get that blend of real life and second life type stuff. And, Ben's a great guy. And, I think it'd be a fantastic one just because, like I said, I think there's all that real history that everybody kind of knows under the surface. And, also, he loves us. He's passionate about this stuff. So I would say probably the most interesting match I could have with anyone on here. I think if people saw me and Eric in a match, I think everybody would be pretty gassed up for that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's add on to that. Would there be any special stipulations? Your dream match with Eric Stewart would be what?
Oh no, but Eric is he loves hardcore stuff. He loves all that sort of stuff. I mean, we did a cage match with Mad Mike as one of our big first pay-per-views.
I told you not to mention Mad Mike. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We love him.
Oh, he pops up. It's hard. He's been in everything. He's been here
right. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
But that was one of our big matches.
Get his questions.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was one of our first. We kind of did the Hell on a Cell thing. And Eric was kind of, wrestling and kind of booking for DCWF. I think we're DCWF or SLCW at the time. But he also built, the cage and all that stuff. And we made custom animations. And he built like a ref's table that could collapse when I hit it. So like, he threw me off the thing and I, basically a back body dropped and I go through the table, which is the first time maybe I ever went through the announcer's table on here. And then, he gets drop kicked or something by Mad Mike off the top. And, it's like a 30-foot high, I thought a little bit too big of a cage. I was like, okay, this isn't very realistic because we die. But it was a cool cage. But yeah, no, I think between me and Eric, I think that would probably be the whatever unification or the story comes to a resolution type thing. So that'd be an awesome match. If that were like the final match I would do. But like I say, I laugh because everybody wants me to win a match when I wrestle with them, but I don't like winning matches because the reason I have a Ric Flair based themed avatar, whatever, is because I like those bumping heel guys. That's my favorite type of wrestler. The Shawn Michaels, the Ric Flair. I don't want to win. I want to be the guy that makes you look good winning. Bounce me all over the ring, throw me out of the ring, let me crawl around. Like that's the stuff that I like to do. So, it's very okay. That's why it was natural with Tenzin. Like, I could play that against his character and be like, okay, I'm getting beat up. So I'm just going to beat, I'll write a match here. I'm going to beat myself all over the arena. But when I go into these matches, like even the one with Mad Mike, and he's like, "Oh, you definitely have to win." I'm like, I hate winning. I can't win. I hardly ever win. So,
yeah, but at the same time, there are times, it's fine for you to say, you know what? Yeah, I always want to put everybody else over. Every once in a while, you can be like, okay, I've lost, my choice. I've lost because of, why not let me win one? I mean, come on, your name gets mentioned and you're put on this pedestal and you're sitting there telling us, but I really wasn't much of a wrestler. But even though you get credit for the HUD, but you also get credit for what you've done.
Yeah. And I think, comparatively, again, like even at the charity event, I'm watching these guys have been doing this for 15 years. They look amazing, and I'm watching them with all the animations and all the slick moves and all the macros and stuff. And oh my God, like you said, it looks like real wrestling. It didn't look like that when I left. So,
right.
I'm watching this stuff and I'm like, wow, these guys are really, really good. But at the end of the day, it's just going out there and having fun. And, whether I win or lose, it's, I'm not here to win or lose. I'm here to just have fun. And the part of the wrestling is, what's that?
As long as the story's good, it doesn't matter. Like leading up to that match, it doesn't matter. As long as the story's good. That's how we always talk about on here, me and BK.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's where we can get into more interesting thoughts of mine, like, which is more controversial, is I don't like that everyone copies the national TV format. I never did. I didn't like it when we did it at SLCW and DCWF. I pushed and rallied hard against it. So like when I see all these shows and they're all kind of the same template and all the same cookie cutter, if they do a Halloween Havoc or a cage match or something, or Elimination Chamber or something in real life, that's what we're going to do on here, and that'll be cool. That stuff always bored me to hell. I was like, why are we just copying the national TV format? Why don't we do something unique to Second Life? So I was always pushing hard for dark matches. I was always pushing hard for, especially when we were the landing page, like for a time, SLCW was one of the landing pages for Second Life. You go onto their homepage and they had like different locations that it kind of revolved through. And we were one of them. So like we were getting a lot of newbies coming into the area. Like we're getting a high traffic every single day of people just joining Second Life or checking that whatever that feature was, where like, special locations. And, and when they were coming in, like they'd come to an arena, there'd be wrestlers standing around talking on private chat or something, and nobody would interact with them. I was like, let's put the dark match together, like grab somebody to be the ref and put on a match in front of these people so they can see that this happens and we can do this. And, that's where I always thought was more conducive of the Second Life. But again, this has lasted this long because you all love the national format, and that's kind of how you want to do things. You want to reenact what you love on TV. I just wanted something that was a little more participatory, which thankfully, because of the number of feds you have these days, it's easier to get into. But I didn't want something that was, quite as, first, the production value. You guys talk about it, putting together stuff for Premiere. Like if you're doing a show with 6 or 7 matches, dude, you're spending all week, you got a full-time job, you're doing all that on top of it. I always wanted something that was a little more friendly to Second Life and for people to just come and go.
It's a grind. It's definitely a grind.
Oh, totally. And I think that's kind of the balance you have to strike. I mean,
yeah. Well, so well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, no. I was going to say, you're talking about how what we do in Second Life mimics real life, and you are correct. It does, but we do have to give credit to real life, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be doing this in Second Life. And in all honesty, like when I put a match together, or if I'm in a storyline, I want it to be as entertaining and as close to, and when I mean real as possible, my character, he's a big guy, right? And I'm not going to be sitting there and jumping off the top of cages, like even though Rikishi, got choke slammed off the top of the cage, things like that's fine. But it's really, and maybe it's just me because I consider myself a really creative person, but it's really hard to sit there and go, okay, what can we do in Second Life that hasn't been done in real life, because we've all seen it. And then when you start trying to think outside the box, you get to the point really you want to wrestle on top of an airplane because it's never been done before.
Yeah, they don't understand it.
Yeah, and it's like we have to kind of follow real life, because yes, we have some unlimited some unlimited what I can't think of the word I'm trying to use, but we are restricted sometimes because there are only certain things we can do in Second Life, because people are like, okay, we realize it's a game, but come on, could you really do that? So it's kind of like we have to do a balance of like what people know and what we're able to do.
Well,
let me give you an example.
Good.
What I'm talking about is, everyone follows, and again, I used to cringe whenever we did our free previews, and I still think it's a ridiculous concept, and I'll be controversial with that. Again, it's like, we watch WWE and we're like, okay, they've got regular shows on TV, and then they got their 2 shows a week or 3 shows a week. So we name our shows something similar, Warzone, Showdown, whatever. And then we're going to sit here and we're going to do a free preview every month. I'm like, it's the same stuff. Like, to me, what I wanted to do was, instead of doing SLCW as the internet or the virtual WWF, I wanted to do like okay, two guys come in, they want to wrestle a match. So we create a cool arena and we have like the advertising system like you guys have where you can go over your group chat. But instead of being like, okay, we're presenting Warzone, I wanted it like the old days where it's like, okay, we do like a marquee and do promotional where it's just the main event is, Alpin Criss versus, whatever, Mad Mike Straff. And then you have an undercard that's not even listed. It's just, people going in doing dark matches, 1 or 2 dark matches just to warm up the animations, warm up the crowd. But you could get that done in like, a 45 minutes. You don't have to do all the extra work behind the scenes to plan everything and do everything. And then you can sit here and run it, and you could have different people run it because the production value wouldn't have to be that high. But for me, that was kind of the way I would have probably gone with it. And we did start doing a lot of, before I left DCWF, we started doing a lot of what we had. We had like dark matches throughout the day. And, it was really popular for a while because at the end of the day, people were getting in and getting a chance to wrestle who weren't getting into the, 4 or 5 match card. And they were wrestling every week, which is here it's novel because if you don't wrestle for, Premiere, you can go wrestle for, VWE on one week. Like people are fed now, which wasn't a thing back then. There's a lot of gatekeeping, which also I didn't agree with.
So your concept basically was kind of like how they do boxing promotions. Like you box like Mike Tyson versus this person, then you really don't know who's on the undercard. You're just marking that main show. Is that
yeah. And I wanted the production value to be high, but again, like you guys know, like you're trying to get people together to sit around for 2 hours and do like a full on event. That's hard with real life. And there are people on here who can do it and do it regularly, and they're very lucky. But for me, I was like, man, if we could streamline this and just make it something people come in on Second Life to do, and they can do it in like 45 minutes, and then we have a different crew that can do it every other day. I love the videos. I love all that stuff. But like, if I designed an arena, it would be old school. Like you wouldn't have a Titantron. You wouldn't have that stuff. You'd have a nice looking arena, but you'd have like old school. Like if you're going to cut a promo, you're not going to do this elaborate promo, pre-tape promo or whatever. You're just going to have like a little stage where a guy with a Mean Gene Okerlund alt would come on and hold a mic up, and you spit and shout into the camera. Like that's you guys could go hog wild on that.
80s stuff right there.
70s stuff, man. That's what I'm older. I want that sort of stuff. But to me, I was like, that's stuff that could still capture the wrestling spirit, but would be a little more friendly without having a high, time sink that it takes to put on these shows. Cause anybody, and several of you guys have participated behind the scenes, and some of you guys have run your own feds, but you guys realize how quickly it can just suck into your like real life and take over everything.
100% does a grind. I mean, it is definitely a grind, but it's funny that you go that, like me and BK, one of the things that we like kind of bonded over was like, we're both older, we're up in there in our late 40s, some of us in our 50s, but like,
shut up.
But like we bonded over our love for Memphis wrestling, like because I love Memphis wrestling. To me, was one of the best feds in the 80s because how unpredictable and how real they made everything, and that's kind of like like when we started talking about storylines, like a lot of the storylines that him and I participated in together, like we took a lot of inspiration from that. Like this is stuff like a lot of these younger guys now, like a lot of these younger guys in SL wrestling had never seen stuff like that because they're used to like, the WWE, like you said, WWE, the big production of it. Like, let's go like smoky room arena stuff here and let's do that, doing different stuff. And you don't know if it's real or fake, or if you don't know, you play with people's emotions a little bit, thinking, oh, wow, that might, I don't know. And that was, doing things that they're questioning if that was real, or they say it was real, that they do that, that's the stuff I like.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I think, that's kind of the way that I saw it. Like, I think that, again, you get some interesting, it's just contrast. Like if every fed on here has the same, we look like, WWE or whatever, your modern promotion looks like on TV, and we have all the art and all the objects and the arena sculpted to look like it all looks like the same national, when we get all the colors together and they all look the same, it looks like the same brown goo. And to me, I'm like, So why doesn't somebody build like a 60s old school arena, and just like drop in, like you said, to get this smoking room where it looks like the guys with the cigars are sitting there, puffing away. And it's like, kind of do the throwback look. Cause, you know, again, things are cyclical. I feel like when you look at the movies that are successful nowadays, you look at the shows that are getting successful, it's the stuff that's starting to throw back.
Yep.
It's not the stuff that's written for the quote unquote modern audience. The stuff that's a throwback is the stuff that's popular, the stuff that's simpler, that sticks to those story tones of the 60s, 70s, and maybe 80s are what people are craving, because we haven't had any of that. So I'm like, wrestling's the same way. If they throw back a little bit and get away from some of the, the high spot, chasing and the, 5,000 moves in a bazooka to win a match, then, people would like it, because that in and of itself would be something really different. It would be different from what everyone else is doing. So, that's just my take. But like I said, this stuff has lasted 17 years. So I'm not underselling this. This is popular. This is what people know. They know SmackDown versus Raw video games. They know the WWE video games. They know their e-feds. They know what they see on TV, what the pay-per-views look like. So the people that come here that are doing this, of course, they're going to mimic it. I don't say that's a bad thing. I'm just saying I think it should be different, because I like seeing stuff that's different. I like seeing stuff that's creative. And doing a pay-per-view just because a free per-view just because WWE does pay-per-views, that's not creative. That's just derivative.
Yeah.
Okay, but okay, so what would you suggest do? Because think about it with wrestling, everything, there's always a means to an end. You have it where you want to showcase all your big stars. You want to do something like, and they've gone from calling them free previews to super cards. If you don't agree with that, how would you set up a formula or a format that would basically, and I know that you're probably going to cringe a little bit when I say this, but it's the only way to express it. How would you set up a WrestleMania or an All-In or a Bash at the Beach type thing without referring to it as something that you would see in real life?
Well, I didn't, because you're saying, how can you do something without doing it? And I wouldn't do it in the first place. That's how I wouldn't do it. Like I said, like what I would see is something where you have more matches throughout the day. You're not asking the people in UK or Europe to get it up it or stay up till, God knows what hours at the morning so they can wrestle at 6 SLT or 4 SLT. I want something that's easier to put on the spot, that you could easily, especially with AI now. Now you don't even have to have that sophisticated of skills of like Photoshop and that. You could do old school like banners or something like Mike threw together for the charity event, where you just do these like old school looking cards where it's, BK versus Paul Slater, live at the whatever, the Metro Dome or whatever you want to call it, the Terror Dome. I don't know. Right. And then you just design his old school looking arena that looks like you probably get just like the shell of it just off the marketplace. And then you just dress it out like a smoky room and you go in there and, that's the main match, and you throw guys out there for some dark matches who don't normally get to wrestle, or heck, you get alts out there from guys that don't normally use them and are veterans elsewhere. And then you just have a place where, it's easier for people to come in and be like, hey, I want to wrestle. It's like, all right, let's do a match. And it's not about the high production value. It's not about everyone wasted a week putting this together, so it better not suck. And it's like, once you take that time sink out, you can be a little bit, that pressure's off, and you can have a little more fun with it, I think, than the pressure of doing the weekly show, bi-weekly show, tri-weekly show, plus putting together the monthly, super card. It's just, again, I just look at it from running it, watching friends run the Fed, having run the Fed myself. I'm like, man, it's on a long run very hard to sustain, and there's got to be better formats that'll be just as popular. It's like recruiting, like, a lot of these HUDs you can target and then teleport in. That's what we used to do to recruit people. We'd go to an area that was popular on a mainland, target each other before we teleported because your HUD still works when you first res. And then we just start doing wrestling moves and beating the crap out of each other at clubs and stuff in front of everybody. And be like, what the hell is this? Like, how are these guys doing all this stuff? And we'd get IMs and stuff for landmarks. And it's like, yeah, that's a great way to attract people.
Absolutely, it is. All right. If you haven't already, make sure to like, subscribe, and share our YouTube page. Make sure to follow us on X at Paul BK, the Fourth Wall. We're going to take a short break here for our sponsors.
Bitch Please has teamed with Whatchamacallit. Brings you all of your clothing needs from custom wrestling attire to everyday clothes. Established in 2007, Whatchamacallit is one of the oldest clothing stores in SL. For more information, contact Baddock Og. Custom work is available, and they have clothes for men and women.
Have you ever logged into Second Life just to spend time with that special someone? Or just to escape that headache called real life and you just can't seem to find anything to do? Well, here at Warblood City, we have got something for you. Rentable bikes for a bike ride, a cafe for that date night, or a place to catch up with friends over tea and coffee. We also have our very own movie theater, so make sure you check out what's on the big screen. Every year from the 21st of September until the 1st of November, there's Warblood City's annual Autumn Carnival, so make sure to check that out. All you got to do is go into your search bar and type in Warblood Isle. Take the teleport, and welcome to the last stop you'll need for fun. We will see you all very, very soon.
LPW, otherwise known as Limitless Pro Wrestling. Check out their shows Riot Thursday nights at 4 p.m. SLT. Then catch them again on Unleashed Sundays at 1 p.m. SLT.
Aaron's Domain is a SL-themed server for friends, family, and the SL wrestling community. They have all sorts of channels and categories that may pique your interest and are currently tied to several other feds in the SL community, whether Rain works there or not. They do show their support for the family in the best way that they can. If you wish to become a member and join us, feel free to ask herself or Chrissy, and they will get back to you. Welcome to the Aaron family, and the door is always open.
Premier Wrestling is Second Life's leading federation for virtual sports entertainment, where passion meets performance, and the spotlight's not just on the ring, it's on you. We're recruiting now. Wrestlers, commentators, managers, referees. If you've got the drive, we've got the platform. With 4 electrifying weekly shows, Overload, Attitude, Rise, and ABW, Premier isn't just entertainment, it's a movement, a community, a gateway to the virtual world, proudly partnered with Linden Labs. Whether you're here to compete, perform, or elevate the action behind the scenes, there's a place for you in the Premier family. Step into the story. Visit premier-wrestling.com and join the action.
All right, and we are back, and we are sitting with the one and only, and like I said before, been so many accolades given to you, but we have Alpin Criss in the studio with us right now, and this has been a great honor. Alpin, one of the things that we talked about before the show is you were talking about some of the things that you don't like about the new style of with the wrestling, and I know we just talked about the production, all that, but you were talking about basically how it seems like people are too reliant on technology as opposed to wrestling. Do you want to elaborate on that?
No, I just think it's kind of how the system evolved, and again, like there you have the users, you give the users what they want. I think people wanted the ability to hotkey. I think that's a great technology. I think they wanted to be able to perform the spots in a more fluid way so it looks better. So like when I was watching matches at the charity event, like, some of the matches were just unbelievable what they could chain together. But like I said, when I was designing the system, I wanted something that was a little more, you're able to control and throw a move at a time. It's kind of like you're playing SmackDown versus Raw, but the idea is to actually perform a match live and call it live. Again, old school. Like I think you should be able to go out there without having a script and just having a bare outline of what the finish should be. And you should have, maybe you guys, pre-program what offensive moves you're going to use or whatever, but the rest of it is just, on mic calling it on the fly. That to me is like more fun. than what would be just like coming up with, spending a week just programming, 18 gestures that I just go, shift Q, shift E, shift R, shift T, shift Y, shift U, shift I. I mean, that isn't what I was looking to do with the system. So when I was sitting there and you're, just standing in your arena and some new person comes in and says, "Hey, what's this Premier Wrestling thing, or what's this SLCW thing?" Throw them a HUD, hop on in, let me show you how to wrestle. And then, that stuff was fun. You just start goofing off and start kind of just like spamming, and again, that comes down to just killing that time sink. I mean, I see a lot of people, preparing for matches and stuff, and they're so intense into it because they're preparing for something that's going to go on, either be recorded or go on live. And I'm like, man, sometimes you just want to riff. Let's bring back some of the fun of just kind of riffing and just, programming a HUD that just has the ability to do moves, and you can just kind of do stuff on the fly and see what you come up with. But it comes back to just like you said, like thinking on your feet. Some people would be able to do that, and some people prefer the other way, where they know everything's kind of scripted and they can just follow that and just move to spot A and hit button X.
You cut out. Yeah, I'm sorry, on my end, you cut out. What was that you said?
Oh, no, I'm just saying, I think for some people, they just like the idea of, you just plan a match and it's just, move to spot A and hit button X. And that's what you're doing. So I wanted something that was more of, you'd be on the mic going, okay, punch me, throw me into the ropes. And then you'd be able to react and actually do it on the fly versus, I want to, throw me to the ropes. I'm going to take a dive over the ropes, and you just do that. Instead of, a week in advance, you're like, okay, here's the spot where you throw me over the ropes, put it on shift Q, and then, or shift Z or whatever it is. And then, you go into the match and it's like, okay, here we go. Hit shift Z. Now we're going. Not saying it would look better. I don't think it would look better, because I think what you guys currently are doing looks fantastic. So like I said, watching the matches from the crowd is great. I'm just talking me personally, user experience. I want to have the fun of doing the moves. I don't want to just hit a button and have it autopilot me all the way. And I want to fly the dang plane.
Yeah.
That's one way to put it. Fly the plane. Of course, with all the the high flying moves they do nowadays, they're probably going to have some move come up called flying the plane, and somebody's going to jump from one post to the other and do their own new around the world version of the coast to coast.
You could probably do that. With the way these animators are amazing, man. I seriously, you told me what is gobsmacking me is like, especially with the professionalism and the motion capture and all that. Like watching the moves, I'm just like, wow, that looks so good, and it looks great. The matches look great. But again, there's a user experience, and it's like I want it to be kind of like video gamey. I want it to be kind of like. Like the HUD I gave you, when you run, it has that Metal Gear 5 shake to it. So like every time your foot falls, the camera shakes. I kind of did that with my boxing system. And it's like, I want something that's going to be like, wow, this is kind of like, you can do this sort of camera stuff on Second Life. You can make it feel like this sort of game. That's what I like to do. That's kind of where I like to go with it. And it could be popular, it could not. Like I said, when I first did my boxing system, I put it out there, and all the guys, and there were, 100 people doing it regularly, bonking each other into the sky to see who goes the highest. They're like, oh, that'll stink, and it's like, okay. And then I come back and they're like, your boxing system revolutionized boxing. I'm like, well, everyone said it sucked when I put it out there. So 10 years later, it's great.
Well, in retrospect, you can, it's like everything else. In retrospect, you could always say, well, the first version, yeah, it sucked because we didn't quite know we knew what we were going for. We just didn't quite know how to hone it. And then it's just been evolved. Everything that's happened because of what you initially started to do. So everybody can. My
opinions, like I said, like a lot of the questions you're asking me, I have my opinions on. I'm not saying I'm right. At the end of the day, this has evolved organically, and it's gone where it's gone. Like, I think that is the right answer. I think it is, the way they're doing things, the way they've designed the HUDs, the way they're meeting a demand. And that's why so many people love this and so many people do it. Just because I say I would do it differently doesn't mean I think that that's the only way to do it, or that it's like the best way to do it. I just know what I would like, how I'd like to wrestle. And it's just like, I'd like to see some of that or more of that, or, I like to think I'm not weird. So I'd like to think there's other people out there that are, yeah, I'd like to wrestle like that too. That sounds like cool.
I mean, come on, you're best friends with Mad Mike. How much weirder can you get?
Well, I mean, Mad Mike and me have a long history, but he's been just as supportive as he's been. He's been just as critical of stuff. He's not afraid to call me out.
Well, that's good.
He likes and I might be putting words in his mouth, but he sees all the benefit of the modern system, and he sees kind of how people like to do things. So, and like I said, he's done a ton of animations for the way people do things now. So, for me to come in and say, well, I design a system that's different and I want it to do this and this, and it's way different than we're doing now. He keeps me grounded. He's the one that's going to be like, well, we got to figure out a way for people to adopt this. Cause to be honest with you, they already do it this way and we've been doing it this way for a long time. So, having that sort of pushback or feedback has been great.
Oh, well, that's great to hear. Okay. So you've talked about the HUD. We talked about your real life. Gun, where'd that truck come from? Sorry. Truck just went by. Talked about your real life, with your wrestling fandom and what you like to see and what you don't like to see. Since you came back for the charity event, I know you focused on that because that was the reason for you coming back, was to honor Catherine.
Yeah.
And I think you said this earlier, but I want to make sure that everybody, have you had the opportunity to hop around to any of the different feds to see how each one of them put on their shows? Or have you only been to one?
I've been to several. Every time, even out in the fans here, I've asked people to send me landmarks. I bounce around what I could find. I haven't been able to get to a whole lot of events because just most evenings I'm not available. But I've tried to catch everything I could. If there's videos online, I've tried to catch that, and it's all cool stuff. Like, and I tell you right now, the arena builds and the looks of all these places is just amazing. Like even your guys' studio here, but the high quality on that stuff is just it's top notch. So going to see how they put together all these arenas and put together their sims is just touring that's been pretty cool. So
oh, that's great to hear. Okay, so with you saying that, you said that you've been around, and with your time availability, we all understand real life comes first. We constantly say that, but at the same time, with your experience, with you first learning, going through the pose ball, going in and doing the HUD, and then talking about how shows are put on, do you feel that it would be more beneficial, or do you think it would be more detrimental if people would actually get out of their quote unquote bubble to see what everybody else is doing and to say, hey, I saw them do this. We need to elevate ourselves so people watch it? Or do you think it's okay? Hey, this is how we do it. This is how we're always going to do it. People like it. They'll come to show. If they don't, they don't. No big deal.
that's a great question. I mean, I think to some degree, again, you're starting from the premise to me of like, we're putting on shows and we have an audience. Get the audience out of your mind. Like the audience is Second Life residents that, to me, Second Life is somewhere you go to do stuff. What I hated about going to those clubs and standing on a dance pose ball is you weren't even dancing. You're just standing there listening to somebody play stuff off his iPhone. For me, it's like, give them a place to do stuff. Give them a place where they can go and they can wrestle. Give them a place where they can go and get taught to wrestle. Give them, I think participation is what's really cool about Second Life, and that's kind of like what I was trying to push everyone to do, even back when we were like SLCW. And well, I don't know, Misaki, that's a good point. Who knows? Whatever they were playing off of, what was the streaming thing? Who knows? But for me, it's just like, get people in here, get people participating. I think the furry feds do the best job of that, from what I've seen. And it's like, again, if you're trying to create these cards where you're like, okay, we're going to do the national format, we're going to have 5 matches, 6 matches, and we're going to have, we got 55 wrestlers on our roster now. Like I went over to VWE, they got all these great posters of all these wrestlers. I'm like, do you really have like 50 guys on this roster? Like, do they get in every show, or are these guys just wrestling alt somewhere else? And probably they're all wrestling alt somewhere else. So even back when we were closed, I mean, there was always at least 2 or 3 feds. I know there's kind of this misconception that SLCW was the only game in town, but Ivan left SLCW very shortly. We ran for maybe 4 or 5 months before he left. And when he left, it was like, he popped up his own Fed and I let him use my system. So ever since then, we've always had a few guys out there with like a rival Fed or an alternate Fed or whatever. And and we'd always have people wrestling with their alts there, even if we told them they couldn't wrestle. But then I was always the one that was like, let them wrestle wherever, because all they're going to do is create an alt. Like, who cares? Like,
Right.
You're taking it a little too serious if you're saying, BK, you can only wrestle for us because it's Second Life Wrestling, and we're important and the show's important. And I'm like, guys, it's Second Life Wrestling. Let's be a little more grounded with it.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but it's always been that way because I think people invest in the, especially when there's such a high. And again, this is what people kind of misconstrue. There is a high investment, like the guys who are on the card, at least the way it used to be, which I'm sure it is now, you guys can correct me, but the guys who are on the card getting the high spots are the guys who are always there, always available, always putting real life stuff aside to be there. They're sacrificing for it. So I get that, like that 100%, like that's who we valued. We don't want a guy calling us at, every week. It's always a new reason why he can't be there, and yet he's on the main event. You know what I mean? Like you can't function that way doing a show. So like, for me, with the time investment and all that, just having an alternative. And it seems like some of these feds are doing that. They have kind of like dark shows they put on or that sort of thing where it's like, okay, we're going to do this, maybe with our top guys, maybe with our undercard guys, and it's not so serious. I saw a few feds actually do what I suggested a long time ago with the national format. I was like, why are we doing live shows? Let's just tape the stupid thing. If we're going to sit here and we're going to do like a season of episodes, like I think Premiere does this. I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what I was saying we should do that nobody wanted to do back then. It's like, why do the live shows? Then we can cut and edit. And if somebody botches a move, we can recut it and recast it and make it look really good. Even with the basic animations we had back then. Now you guys shows off that stuff looks great. So.
Yeah, and a lot of it goes like with the Premiere stuff, it's because I can attest to it. Like there's a lot of preparation that goes into it, just like any other show, because like they tape it for YouTube and they want the YouTube show to be perfect. And there's a lot of different challenges that go in the production wise of that. So yeah.
Yeah, but you're not mixing the live. You guys do get an audience in, from what I understand.
Yeah,
but you're not you're not mixing the, oh my God, live event. We can't if there's like a huge botch or somebody, like we've had happen at events when we were running them, like they'd lag and just go through the sky. And it's okay, let's reset this and start from this.
No, it's definitely
go back a couple spots. Let's refilm this.
Yeah, it's definitely if somebody messes up, it's like, okay, we know where to fix it.
I know somebody messed up because I got completely edited out of the show. I know.
Cut the camera. I know. We got another camera over here. Cut to the
right?
Announcers.
Yeah.
That's the oh shit button. Cut to the announcers.
Yeah, I had something cut completely out of the show not too long ago. Because
which is great. I think that's
I went off. No. You know what I'm saying? I went off script and they got mad at me. I did. I went way off script.
And I'm not going to comment on how they're running it. I'm just saying I think the idea is great because I think it takes that pressure off of, okay, we got to put this live show on, and then you deal with lag and all that stuff comes up, and it's like, that's stress you don't need. Why are we making it stressful? This isn't a third job. This is a hobby. This is a pastime. This is a love passion for all of us. It's a game, and it's like, good God, like there are times we get so intense, and I think people still probably do, where it's just like we're making this a little bit more serious than we should be making it.
Agreed.
And we should be looking for every method we can to make this fun and accessible. And that's
people
always
forget that though. I mean, you get so deep into the grind of things, like booking a show, writing the storylines, figuring out the videos, recording the videos, that you forget that it's a hobby. You know what I mean? And it does feel like a job a lot, but at the end of the day, it's like, you get kind of satisfaction, or I guess some, feeling of accomplishment when everything that you planned and everybody else planned, all the teammates around you planned, and it comes to fruition, and it's like, all right, man, that was good. You know what I mean? We all did this together, and there's a sense of appreciation with it afterwards, but it is a grind, and you lose yourself in it a lot of times. Where, just for example, like the other night, I was up till like 3 or 4 in the morning, just, doing the things I had to do for, storylines coming up with the season and stuff, and you get lost in it.
You do. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, like, some people, when you do start getting lost in those weeds, you just got to remember, guys, this is just for fun. It's okay if it's not perfect. Come up with ways like the pre-taping or whatever, where you can say, okay, we got, an hour on, whatever you guys do it on Monday, Wednesdays or whatever. And it's like, okay, we're going to sit down in an hour and we'll tape the match. You guys, I don't even know if you guys do you tape every match all at once or
it's a
what the
continuous
heck,
show.
man. I'd be like, and again, it depends how sophisticated you're trying to be. If you're trying to be super sophisticated, of course, you need to have your camera guy there. You got to have your announcers there.
Yep.
But I envisioned of like, okay, so, we need to design something that, we have 2 or 3 people on here who can record a match and kind of operate a camera system or whatever, sufficiently so that it looks okay. Like, I'm the king of let's make it look okay and let's make it function. So for me, it's like, if you have like 2 or 3 people that can do the referee spot, you have 2 or 3 people, maybe they're not the best announcers, maybe they're not the best color commentators, they're not as, they don't have the great voices you guys have and, the witty banter, but, you have people who can do it, or at least they want to do it. They're passionate about it. And then just, okay, main match we tape on Monday because the Monday guys are all available. Next match we'll, tape on Wednesday because the Wednesday guys are available. We'll do it Friday morning because we got 2 UK guys. That's the only time the UK guys can get on is 9 a.m. in the morning. They can't be here when we do the regular show. And I'm like, that seems to me be like, okay, we can piece it together, tape 3 or 4 matches, and then put an episode together and, do all the graphics and do all the stuff and make it look like it's all one continuous evening, even though it's split over several days. And then that way you guys aren't sitting there like, holy crap, I got to like, I'm on Sunday night. I worked a full week. I've been playing around on Second Life, trying to actually have friends on Second Life. And now I'm sitting here working till 2 a.m. I got a work day tomorrow and I'm just grinding to get ready for this 3-hour event we're about to do where we tape this. Like
but like you don't, the thing is too, and like BK can attest to this, like you don't think about it like that because you enjoy doing it so much. Like, you know what I mean? Like I enjoy coming up with ideas. I enjoy coming up with, storylines or whatever. It's like you enjoy it, but then the next day when you have to get up at 7 a.m, you're like, oh, God damn it, why did I stay up so late? You know what I mean? Like it gets you mad the next day, but like in the midst of it, you're just loving it. You're like, oh man, this is going to be great. You visualize how it's going to look in your head and you're like, oh, this is going to be fantastic. And then my usual thing is I get up the next morning, I look at it, I'm like, this is awful. I gotta re-scrap it, do it again.
But I've been there a lot. It's just one of those things where, like I said, you got to become the king of okay. Stop trying to be perfect. It's like it's good enough. This is for Second Life. This is a hobby. This is a passion. Nobody's sitting here and maybe somebody, other people on the other feds who just have an axe to grind and be like, oh, it sucks what you're doing. You guys suck. They always say that. Like, who cares? I'm having fun. The people in my fed are having fun. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's what matters the most. Exactly.
But at the same time, sometimes, and I'm going to go back to what Eric Bischoff said when the whole let's go live, let's make sure it's live, because at the time Raw was taped. And Eric was the one that come up and created, you have to tune in, you have to come in, you have to be able to see what's going on. And there are times, and there are some people that are listening right now, and some people that hear this later, that will admit that Paul and I live have created some very, in all honesty, we created some very good moments that brought eyes to a product. And sometimes, I agree with you saying, okay, let's do this because of a comment that Leah made in our chat here about people in the UK and people in different time zones. And we can use this, for example, we have Mike, we have Charlie, and we have, and like Emma Gray. They're all in different time zones.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, I completely agree with, look, let's do this and let's make a YouTube-based show. And we can, like you said, we can record all the UK people, all the people across the pond, all the European people. They can get their shows recorded on Tuesday. And then we have these people that can do it on this. I agree with that. But there are times that being live, you actually catch it. Like you have people in here that know why my segment got cut out from the season finale of Premiere and I got fired because of what I did. But had you not been there, you wouldn't have known, okay, what's the big deal? Why is everybody, because people were mad that it got cut out because of how they handled it. People are like, why are you so mad? Why are you so mad? And I had to find somebody that actually recorded it for me. And they're like, oh, that's what we miss live. So it's you kind of like have a check and balance. Yes, do it to accommodate everybody, but sometimes you just create a moment on a video.
I
You have
mean,
to be there for it.
for me,
And it depends what your product is. Like I said, if you're doing the national format TV stuff, then I was always pushing, let's just go ahead and, let's just tape it. We're trying to do a TV show. Again, what are you trying to do? If you're trying to mimic making a WWE TV show, then do that. That's cool. That's great. That's what a lot of us do on here. That's what I'd say everyone's doing on here. If you want to do a pay-per-view, that's great. But when it comes to a product, I mean, I always kind of rolled my eyes. Like, the product is the people in here participating. It's Second Life. Like, the product is, we all love doing this, especially in the early days when it was like, we don't want to let people, you had to do an application to join the Fed or whatever. And it's like,
I
people
remember that.
would come to me and be like, I got rejected. And I'm like, why are we rejecting people? It's like, they're going to come wrestle. Just find a way to get them in to wrestle so they can wrestle and they're going to come. It's like, well, they weren't good enough or whatever. I'm like, who's good enough? It's Second Life. Like, let's just do it.
Now I can, well, with the application thing, the only thing for me for the application that you brought up, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but this kind of goes in, is that I understood if you did the application process only because you want to know how old somebody's Abby is. Because if you're an Abby coming in at 5 days old and you're wanting to wrestle, you haven't been in SL long enough to know if you even like it or not. Because we've had people, I've been in beds, we've had people that come in, oh, I'm 5 days old, I want to learn how to wrestle. And then they're gone the next day because they decided Second Life wasn't for them. Also, along that
everyone
line,
told them they can't do it. And most people quit. But I'll tell you what, there was a 5-day-old or a 7-day-old or a 14-day-old Alpin Criss who was going around. And when I tried to get into stuff or tried to get into wrestling, I saw it and was like, if you can't do this or this can't be done, it's got to be pose ball wrestling. And I looked him in the eye and said, let's figure out something to do that's better than this. And it's like, that's the beauty of Second Life. To me, it's like, I think Vince Aftermath had that story because I was listening to his episode with you guys, and it was basically the same thing. I was only a few days old, and DCWF told me to take a hike, and guess what? Now he's running one of the most popular feds on Second Life, and he's sitting here, and he's actually tied into Linden Labs and getting on their homepage just like SLCW was. I mean, that's huge. And that's a guy that was told, because you're too young or because, whatever, you're not going to participate. And that's what I always didn't like. We shouldn't be telling anybody not to participate. Now, is there a problem with, griefers? Is there a problem with those idiots? I get that. Is there a problem with people coming in to wrestle who, are just going to be spam monkeys and and basically make the show look like crap? Well,
I've never heard that term.
Put them in a dark match, let them jump up and down, and like you said, do the round the world, run around the ropes in a circle, and do a backflip off the top rope if they want to do that, and just have them do it as a dark match. Everybody can laugh at them and whatever. It's just goofy, silly, but that's Second Life. I mean, again, I go back to the fact that the most popular feds on here are a lot of the furry feds, and I think those people have a little bit more of a sense of humor about what they're doing 100%. Than the people who really go, we're doing a serious wrestling production. It's like, oh, these guys got rabbits with big honking dammeries, and they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So,
well, and then, but also back to what you were talking about when you were saying about learning how to wrestle and, having to do, you want to do it to where you're actually doing the animations and stuff. I've actually been in, when I was going through training, when Premier was actually VAW, there was actually people that come in and they wanted to learn how to wrestle, but then when they realize you don't just push a button, you actually have to move, you have to line up, you have to meet spots. They're like, oh no, this is too much work, I just wanted to push a button. I think that's kind of what prompted the whole thing that you don't like about the macros and everybody relying on it. I think that people thought, oh, well, this is too much work. And then
it's organic. Again, it was. I mean, like you said, typing / whatever. How many times have we, instead of punch, it's puck. Like how many times have you been in the middle of a match back in the old days, especially, and you do that, and you just get one letter off, or it doesn't autocomplete correctly. So I totally get it with the macros. What I'm saying is like kind of what I am trying to do right now. Like I want. You got buttons on your HUD, just like you have buttons on your controller. You hit the button and you hit a direction and a move goes. That's it. It's 2 steps. There's no typing. There's no, just like on SmackDown versus Raw, if you're holding forward and you hit the Y button or the X button, this move is going to happen. And that's kind of what I was envisioning, something with that sort of fluid control where you can go through and, I've seen videos, of people making my avatar on like YouTube
That's
on that
awesome.
SmackDown on WWE 2K whatever, and it's like here's the Alpin Criss avatar, and it's just like an uglier version of Ric Flair, which is pretty
Now,
accurate.
Now, what does that tell you about what impact you've had on the
Yeah, the
wrestling community?
influence.
When people you probably have not had the opportunity to sit down and talk to, even like us, this is the first time we had a chance to talk to you, but there's people that you probably know by name and never, but they're mimicking you on a national platform because they actually have like WWE 2K feds that they go into the game and they actually do what we're doing here where they actually put on shows. How does that make you feel that people are actually imitating you?
Well, I don't think there's a lot of people doing that, but the few people that have are probably people that are, from the old days or whatever. But I think it's cool. I mean, again, it's like uh, a lot of these people put a lot of time into this and put a lot of time into that game as well. And it's like, they're just goofing off, they're making an Alpin Criss one probably because they want to make fun of me or, you know what I mean? Like they're just goofing. And it's like, oh, I'm going to do a video of, basically it's just a Ric Flair ripoff, which my character is. And then they're going to sit there and be like, oh, here's Alpin Criss. And, hopefully they just beat me up the whole time or make me look stupid.
Yeah, but they're not going to do that out of respect just for the. I think it's just based on the name because they realize that a lot of things that they learned in Second Life as far as wouldn't have happened because of you.
Yeah.
You,
And I think that comes back to just, again, like you said something about, what we could talk about today. And if there's, subjects not to talk on, I'm like, well, I've given away a lot of free stuff. So even the people that don't like me kind of like me a little bit. I mean, it's not a lot of people that have a huge extra grind.
Yeah, nobody turns down free shit.
I mean, the first wrestling system that I ever saw was there's like Mr. P's Brutality Pack, which was one of those combat griefing HUDs, and it had like a power bomb on it. So everybody's like, oh, it's a wrestling HUD. It had like one move, like power bomb, and maybe a body slam or something. It was worse animations than mine, and that guy was selling it for like 10,000, 20,000 Linden. And then there was a guy who said he was going to open a Fed and basically claimed that he had a working HUD. And he came in really early on and was like, hey, I've got this HUD system I'm making. And he wouldn't show it to us, but he would sell it to us for 100,000. He wanted 100,000.
I don't
Give
think
me the
so.
100,000 Linden and I'll give you the system. And then, so we had him demonstrate it and it was the exact same power bomb from the other HUD. I was like, obviously this dude's scamming us, but, when I was talking to that guy, I remember offering, hey, you got a system with something that works. I don't know the scripting. I just am doing it with this stupid script. Can I just animate for you? I'll just make the moves and you just put them in your system and then you can run with that. And that guy said no. And, there you go. There's an ACPWS and nobody knows the name of whatever he claims he was working on. So.
Oh my God!
Again, don't say no to the 14-year-old day old avatar because the 14-day-old avatar.
Did you ever hear the story about the 5-day-old Paul Slater? BK, you ever hear that story? The 5-day-old when he walked by the training room and some asshole in the training room started talking shit to him. Remember that
don't
one?
know anything about it. Nope, don't know anything about that one. No, absolutely nothing about that one. That's one I haven't heard yet.
Yeah,
You'll have to fill me in on that.
Yeah, we'll leave that alone for now.
Alvin, just to catch you up, the first time Paul and I met, I was actually wrestling, and he was supposed to come as a commentator, and he didn't. And I was being introduced, and he didn't bother to type, or I guess he was fooling with his headset, and he didn't think about typing. Hey, give me a moment, my headset's messed up. So the introduction was, "Hey, BK, this is Paul, the commentator. Hey, Paul, how you doing?" 30 seconds go by, nothing said. 30 seconds go by, nothing said. And I'm like, great, another fucking commentator that doesn't talk, and I walked away. I literally walked away.
Yeah. I'm like, I hate this guy.
What a jerk.
Yeah, he hates me so much, and here we are sitting next to each other 7 years later.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's what the beauty of this is. I mean, the friendships, the again, by participating, and that's why I always want to come down to, like, I wanted to make stuff and do stuff that everyone could participate in, because to me, that's how you form those friendships and do that stuff. So anytime I hear, or even when I was running feds or helping run feds, when it was like, oh, we're going to be exclusive, or you can't go wrestle there, I'm like, why are we telling people who they can be friends with on here? This is just
that's running to a lot of us who, oh, your friends that one over there. So what I do outside of here is none of your business.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, and it's just like, what are you going to do? It's not like there's a price to make an alt. Like if I don't want to, if you're going to tell me I can't wrestle somewhere, guess what? Half the other roster is your guys too, because they're not being booked in your only 3 or 4 match super card. So they're going to go over on Tuesday night and wrestle there because they're not going to stand around on Second Life one whole week waiting to get a chance to wrestle. Like they're going to, or a month or whatever it is. So that's part of what, my philosophy was too. Like get them in there so they can get in the ring more often because people want to do it. They don't want to, just stand around waiting to do it. Stand
Right.
in line for a wrestling match. That's kind of what it devolves to.
Yeah. Now, as we were talking about earlier, about, and you were saying about the storylines and that you're a firm believer in telling stories and you're a firm believer in making sure that matches make sense. And this is a conversation we've had with other people. I want to get your perspective on this. In all honesty, do you feel, and because I feel they did, do you feel that maybe AEW kind of screwed everybody over when they started showing those graphics where it says like Alpin Criss single record 10-1 or Alpin Criss and BK tag team record is 15-30? Do you think that maybe they screwed everything up? Because a lot of times with these, it's like I want an 8-week storyline, but in the 8 weeks I want to have 6 matches because it's important to me that wins and losses. Do you feel that that's kind of hurt the wrestling and
I
that's
think,
why people got
yeah,
away from storytelling?
no, I don't think it hurts. Like, again, I come from it from like an athlete perspective. Like, the one thing that always perplexed me with I don't know what you want to call it, the melodrama style of professional wrestling, is just basically, I don't need them. I don't need to understand why these guys are fighting. Like, I don't need it's like a boxing match. I don't need to hear that Mike Tyson's girlfriend got stolen by his opponent and that's why he's now going to go in and beat him up. Mike Tyson's going to beat him up because he's Mike Tyson. It's a boxing match.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know. He's going to beat him up. He's going to beat anybody up who's in the ring because he's trying to be the best athlete he can. But once we get out of it being like an actual sport and we're trying to make it be something other than a sport, then you got to come up with those. What's the motivation here? Why are they getting in the ring? Why are they doing this? And it's like, well, you don't need that motivation when it's athletes because athletes get in the ring or get in the pool or get in the boxing ring or they, whatever it is, pick a sport, bullfighting, they get in that arena or the soccer arena because they just do it and they want to win. And that's all there is to it. They don't have to have all these motivations behind the scenes and all the melodrama and all the, he hurt my feelings and they hurt it. No. When I was an athlete, I was a swimmer, I was a competitive swimmer. It's like I got on the block, I wanted to kick your ass. When I got off the block, we're friends again. That's perfectly understandable. That's in that moment, when they call us to the blocks, it's on, and we're different people at that moment. You're the guy I'm going to kick his ass, and I'm the guy you're going to try and kick my ass. And it's like everyone understands that deep down in their soul. Like you don't need to explain why 2 people are getting in the ring to wrestle. Like they're wrestling because they're athletes and that's what athletes do. And yeah, they're trying to kick each other's ass because they're trying to kick each other's ass. And guess what? This guy's the bad guy. This guy's the good guy. The good guy is going to have to overcome whatever, cheating or advantages the bad guy has. And at the end of the day, whether it's this match or another match, eventually the good guy wins. That's pro wrestling right there.
Right.
That's it in a nutshell. And if you're
Okay,
not
but you
doing
don't.
that, if you get into the ring and you don't know who the bad guy is and you don't know who the good guy is, and this is my critique of modern wrestling, then you messed up. Because everyone, it was kind of cool in the 90s and into the 2000s when they blurred the lines and everything was gray and the good guys are bad guys are good guys. But like I said, I think we're in a throwback era. I think the movies that hit are the Top Gun Mavericks. I think it's the ones that are like, hey, we're doing an 80s movie. Here it is. Good guys, bad guys, bam. Everyone loves it because we've had all this blurred lines and all the gray for so long. God, I just want to see a regular black and white. Here's the bad guy. Why? Because he's ugly, he's big, he's hairy, he stinks, he cheats, he does all this stuff. And here's the good guy. He's handsome, he's ripped, he always follows the rules. He's not going to hit a guy when he's down. He's not going to beat him outside of the ring. He's going to let him get back in the ring. That's the good guy. And I think people crave that because they haven't seen it in so long.
You think like the way the world is now that kind of flips sometimes where sometimes people don't want to see the good looking guy achieve the greatness. They want to see that ugly guy win. Like, do you think, you know what I mean? Like where now it's like, you know what I mean? Like being rich or preppy, or and even though if you're a good guy, like sometimes people resent that.
No, I think it's true to some degree, but then again, look at all the avatars around you.
Yeah.
You know, who's sporting the fat, overweight. You know, I'm the ugliest avatar here. I did that intentionally. I gave myself a big nose. I gave myself, you know, this isn't even my original skin. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, people are on Second Life living a fantasy life. There ain't a lot of them living a fantasy life where they're picking the most unattractive form
No,
they can pick to be on here.
I was speaking
You
real
know,
life, like real life wrestling, not so much Second Life. Like how, like, you know what
it's
I mean? Like
hard because
you
when's the
see,
last time you've seen a heel? And you know, and again, like, I'm sorry, picture a heel from 1975. Just picture it in your head.
Yeah.
You see a guy that he's probably got, you know, cauliflower ear. He's probably the ugliest
Killer
mug. He's
Kowalski.
hardly raced.
Yeah.
He's hardly
Okay.
raced. Got
Oh,
hair
okay.
coming out of
Okay.
all sorts of weird body parts.
Okay. Here's the name for anybody who's familiar with Smoky Mountain Wrestling USWA. Joe LeDuc.
Yeah, he was ugly. He was really ugly.
Yeah, he
Joe
was. He was
LeDuc.
like, yeah, Joe LeDuc. He was like along the same. He wasn't as tall, but he was along the same lines as Abdullah the Butcher and
He
George the
was,
Animal Steel.
Oh God, Abdullah the Butcher. Picture that guy's face.
Yeah.
That's not somebody you want to wake up to, right?
but it's like you see
And
today in modern wrestling, like for example, like Cody Rhodes. Like Cody Rhodes is the golden boy in the WWE now. Like, you know, but
Well,
there's
that's
people
Cody
resenting him
Rhodes
now
is doing the
because of
Nature
that.
Boy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's doing the Nature Boy. There's always that's Ric Flair's stick. That was the original Buddy Rogers Nature Boy stick. It's the, you know, he got sprayed with perfume when he got in the ring. I mean, imagine that. You're in like the 1940s, and this dude's coming in wearing a feathered robe,
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
sprayed with perfume or spraying his
Yeah.
opponent with perfume.
You don't get the
to
credit he
get in the ring.
deserves either. Like, you know, that
Yeah.
that generation's long forgotten. But if it wasn't for him, it wouldn't have been as flamboyant and as over the top as it got. It was because of him doing stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's the same characters. You know, it's the same characters, just different generation. Cody
Exactly.
Rhodes is playing the Nature Boy. He's playing the jet setting, high flying, limousine riding. You know, he's doing all that stuff. He's like, I'm the handsome, blonde haired, chiseled, handsome looking guy that has all the money, gets all the girls. Everyone hates that guy. You hated him in high school. You hated him,
Right.
you know, in college. You hate him in real life if he's the CEO or the, you know, the finance bro with all the money and the 22-year-old hot wife. Like everyone.
See,
hates that.
but see, at the same time, another reason why, and I do realize, I completely understand because of being a wrestling fan and watching it when the Monday Night Wars hit. I completely understand Stone Cold Steve Austin
He related to
transferring.
people.
Right, I got all that, okay, but
Yeah.
then you have the people that instead of letting the fans organically decide if they're going to like them or dislike them and let them do anything. One of the ones is like you said, the good-looking guy, you know, supposed to be what everybody looks at. That got shoved down everybody's throat. They started hating him was John Cena.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was the first name came to my head.
Now, here's the thing. I personally like John Cena. There was 2 times in his life that I liked him. Number one, when he was the doctor of thugonomics and he would come out and do those quote unquote freestyle raps, because to me that was the greatest thing because he could just bust on anybody and I loved it. And then once that gimmick was over, I didn't give a damn about him until he did that, I'm sorry to say, overdue, too short-lived heel turn that he did.
Yeah.
Because
And the
people
problem
didn't
was,
want
I
to see
think-
that end. People didn't want to see him end like that. And I think that's why
I didn't either.
And the problem is, again, you're going from an era where, again, looking back at what the development was for a guy in the 80s, a guy in the 80s or a guy in the 90s in the Attitude Era, he grew up, those guys were in their 30s, 40s. They went through and were trained by the guys that did it and did it organically. Like, you know, you didn't get the scripted stuff where it's like, okay, you know, we got a writing team that's giving the wrestler the words coming out of their mouth. Again, you're just getting bad actors, not professional wrestlers. Like, can you imagine giving Roddy Piper a script, you know, and saying, hey, Roddy, we know what your character is. We're going to make you funny. We need to make you that sassy asshole. So we're going to give you a mic and we're going to give you the lines. Now,
No.
Roddy was talented enough. He could do it. But would you rather have the original Roddy Piper on the mic, you know, with his years of experience? Just
absolutely.
you know?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, and I'm with you. I don't think it's organic because it's so controlled. And again, that's what happens when you're what's the old saying when you're a publicly traded company, before you're a publicly traded company, the product you put out is the product.
Yep.
Once you're a publicly traded company, your customers are the product. That's what happens. It's not organic anymore because they're not in the business of putting wrestling as the product. The product is the people, and they're selling that to their shareholders. So they're going to do stuff that's safe. They're going to have a writing team because God forbid we have these guys actually develop their own personalities and figure out how to say their own things. They'll still let people do it, but it's, you hear all the interviews, behind the scenes, behind the kayfabe, and it's just like they're all saying the same thing. It's like so scripted, so controlled. These guys have so many insurance all these insurance contracts is so high for them to do this stuff now that it's like, we're not going to do wrestling. You watch a wrestling show these days, you're going to get like 20 minutes of wrestling. The rest of it's commercials.
Yep.
You got all the drama stuff, and then you got all the other nonsense that's going on. And it's like, where's the actual wrestling? Watch a wrestling program from like Memphis, like you're talking about. And it's like, an hour long shows, 55 minutes of wrestling and, a couple promos, and then you got the commercials.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so here's one, and this is something because, like I said, let's just be perfectly, the on the ground floor of what we have for today, and you've been talking about storylines, you've been talking about characters and all that. In your honest opinion, because Paul and I can relate to this, because Paul and I have done over the years, we have done a lot of writing for each other and with each other to help other people out.
Cool.
But tell me if you think that this falls into, people, like you said, wanting to do the wrestling. We're talking about writing storylines. We're talking about character people, people want to see the product. Like you said, they want to see the people themselves. Do you think that it is, and I don't want to use the word fair, but I want to say, do you think it's, in your personal opinion, do you think it's a little bit of bullshit and entitlement when somebody comes in and says, look, I don't know what I want to do with my character. Please help me. And you go through and you do all this and like, look, this is what you should do. This is how it should be. This is what we're getting from you. And they turn around and look at you. No, that's not what I want to do. And then, okay, tell us what to do. I don't know. It's up to you to do it.
Writer.
You're the writer, but I don't like what you've written. Do you think it needs that sometime or another people just say, look, either one or two things happen. You either do what the fuck you're told to do, or you come up with it yourself and you suffer and you do like everybody else did, and you have to pay your dues. You have to figure out what works for you. Should some people just sit down and STFU and do what they're told, or should they just be like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to see what I can throw up against the wall, what spaghetti I throw up against the wall and stick. Do you think that it's okay? Do you think it's okay to tell people, look, either do what I'm asking you to do, or follow the lines and give input, or do it yourself?
Yeah, what's the game we're playing? I mean, to some degree, you got people that want to be involved in that sort of national style, TV national type program, and it's like, then we have writers. We have guys who are being writers, and they're going to tell you what to say because that's what the nationals do. So if you're going to play that game with me, again, we're all playing games with each other on here. That's what this is, a game. So it's like, if that's the game we're playing, then that's what you got to expect. And if you don't want to play that game, go somewhere that doesn't play that game. But that's what a lot of us are doing. So you're going to be at a dead end. But again, it's on Second Life, you got people different sophistications. You guys are awesome on the mic. You guys talk very well. So I could easily see a Fed that has you out there, on open mic, doing your riffs, doing your promos. But what's wrong with the Fed that has the awkward people that just want to type out what they say?
Right.
You know what I mean? And the problem I have is when you have the Fed that has that going on, and it's like, you have the Fed with the voiceover, with all the great people with the great voices going over and saying, you guys suck. You can't even get on voice. You know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of segue from your question. But at the end of the day, if that's what your Fed is doing, then yeah, they need to live by it. If you're coming up, show us you have a good idea. If you don't have a good idea, you're doing our idea. If you want part of the show, if we're doing, that's why I say I like the idea of doing a lot of dark matches. Cause let's say you have somebody who doesn't know what the hell their thing is. Or maybe they don't like what they're given. All right, show us what you do. We'll put on these dark matches throughout the week or whatever, and you can come in and show me this character you want to develop, and just like the old days. Because imagine that when you saw The Rock, when you saw Stone Cold Steve Austin, you didn't see a guy who was just on national TV. These guys were wrestling 350 days a year under all sorts of different names all over the country for WCW, for WWE, and it's one of those things where they developed Stone Cold over time.
Yeah.
He developed that character from all his experience being all the other characters he was being, in all those matches and all those American Legion halls and all those crappy venues throughout his career before that moment happens. No writer said, we're going to make you Stone Cold Steve Austin. He just erupted. And when you put that much time in, that's when you're going to get those guys out. And that's why I think those guys are so much more organic than what we have now. Even in the 80s, you could always tell when it was a Vince McMahon writer's creation, when you got the guy come in with a stupid name. And then when you have The Rock came up with The Rock. He came up with in a promo. It's completely organic. Why is he the most popular guy ever? Why is Stone Cold the most popular guy? Because it was natural. It wasn't made by, Vince McMahon listened to somebody in his writing crew going, oh, you're going to be the, eliminator. I mean, they struck gold on that. Undertaker freely admits that that's exactly what they did. They said, you're the Undertaker. The fact of the matter is they did it with the only guy who could be Undertaker. Yeah. He's the only guy who can make that work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Just like Steve was the only one that could have made Stone Cold work. Dwayne Johnson's the only one that could have made The Rock work.
Those were organic. Those are their personality. Yeah. I mean, Undertaker says, I didn't get it. Like, he'll even say, you can listen to his podcast. I love it. He's like, yeah, they told me I was going to be this Undertaker and come in and put people in bodies, but he's like, I didn't get it. But it's like, he's catching a paycheck. He's wrestling. Yep. If it gets me on the show and it gets me the bigger paycheck, I'll be the,
And then look what it turned into. And even Ric Flair has said the greatest gimmick of all time.
Exactly.
That comes from Ric Flair. Yeah. Nobody saw it coming, but it happened.
Yeah. But again, that's where my point is that it's either way. Like, you got the writing team that's going to say, hey, this is what you're going to do. And when you have somebody who doesn't have the character in mind, that's what you got to do. And if you have people who are creative and you can spot that and they're like playing around with it, let them play around with it. My point is, don't be so strict with it. You got to be flexible both ways, And if the person says, no, I'm not going to do your idea, and you're running the Fed and you're the guy up, right, Paul, you're the guy up on Sunday till 3 a.m. You have every right to tell that guy who isn't up till 3 a.m. You want on the show? This is what you're doing.
Well, he's not wrong.
Nah, hey, I mean, it's the business I chose.
So unfortunately we are coming to the end because we do show this on this is listened to on Dark Star Radio, and we only have a 2-hour time block, and we're coming to the very end of that. But there's a couple of Alpin, that I wanted to get you to admit to, okay? Number one, I need everybody to hear this. You have agreed to sit down with us for a part 2 where you are going to do nothing but field listener questions. Is that true or not?
Yes, completely.
Okay, so that is something that we are going to set up in the near future. And don't worry, it's not going to be like 6 months away. We're going to try to do this within the next couple of weeks, hopefully, because of my RL schedule.
Sure. Yeah, I'm open for that.
Okay, now the other thing is something that we discussed pre-show when it was just us in here, talking and trying to get a feel for each other and everything. You kind of teased with me about a possible comeback for Alpin Criss. Is that true?
That one I don't know about. You got to understand, I get IMs from everybody to come wrestle with them at their Fed. Some of the Fed owners around here have reached out to me. I will definitely like to do it if it's possible. The problem is I don't want to take a spot as somebody who's doing it. If you guys at Premiere or wherever have guys that are doing it, every day, every week, and have been doing it for you for 5 months, and then you say, hey, Alpin Criss is going to take a spot at the show, give it to that guy. But if we can find a way to squeeze me in, I'd love to get in a match and wrestle some of you guys, and maybe we can do it a little more old school. I don't know.
You said at the beginning when we started this, would you be up for one of those things, kind of like where Jesse Ventura come in and special guest referee for Stone Cold? Would you be up to saying, hey, we need somebody that is not as storyline wise, somebody who has nothing invested, they don't know you, they don't know me, as somebody? Would you be up to like being available for guest referee spots?
Yeah, so long as the shows are going on anytime that I'm available, it's just one of those things where, like I said, I did a lot of the guest refereeing back in the day, but for me, it's I'm open to all invitations. I love participating and doing this stuff and working with you guys and doing like this podcast. Or if you guys want to get in a wrestling ring with me to just practice, just shoot me an IM when I'm on. Like
My God, how could you imagine? Imagine two guys like us being able to say that we sparred with Alpin Criss. How many people? How many people could say that?
Anytime. It's what we used to do all the time. And anytime you guys want to get in, if you want to test out my new HUD and see how it's developing.
Oh, you gave it to me. You better believe you gave it to me. You better believe I'm going to try it out for a chance. Like, you better believe I am.
Yeah, but
okay.
It's one of those things where I love working with people, and like I said, if anybody's online, sees my name pop up, if I'm online and I'm not knee deep in thousands of line of code on a script, then I'm more than happy to mess around and just shoot me over TP where you're at and let's wrestle.
All right, folks, there you have it from the man himself. He said he is open to sparring with people and possibly getting back in the ring. So any Fed owners that'll listen to this, say there's a cue. I hate to say this, but go ahead and pull a page out of a real life and bring back an old school guy and let him show how it's done. All right, Alpin, here at the end of the show, that you said you've listened to a couple of our episodes. This is where we always give the opportunity for the guests, any kind of words of wisdom, nothing that you've ever, we talked about, but any kind of words of wisdom that you would like to pass on for hopefully that people will take to heart if they are in wrestling and they want to improve themselves, or if they're listening to this for the first time and they're actually getting into wrestling. What is something that you would like to pass on to them that they, to keep this going, even shock to you now, 17 years later, would be able to keep this going, and also not to toot your own horn, but also to make sure that in all honesty, your legacy is never going to die. It really isn't, because of who you are. But what would you like for the next generation or the next set of wrestlers to be able to carry forward?
I mean, it's Second Life, man. Create, whatever you're looking to do to create. If you're wanting to be color commentary and be on the mic like you guys, and you guys took that and created the show. But man, don't let anybody sell you short. What I always envisioned is what's happened. I wanted to see people make custom animations, custom cells, custom walks, custom taunts, custom moves. And I wanted, in my mind, I thought it'd be cool if you had a bunch of people making their own stuff and they could just drop it in the system. That's exactly where we ended up. And that's exactly where I hoped we'd get to. So if you're out there and you're worried because Mad Mike's animations are the coolest looking things on earth, and you're afraid you're going to get made fun of if you load up old Q-Avimator and try to make something that looks terrible by comparison, you got to start somewhere. Second Life is about making things and doing things. So don't just stand by and let everyone else get in on all the fun of making this stuff. Get out there, make it. Even if it looks terrible, it's yours. You've made it and you can use it. And in the end, when you finally do get good at it through practice, you're going to make yourself much more valuable to whatever Fed you're part of, whether it's building stuff, making mesh stuff, making, animations, whatever. Any Fed will love to have you if you get to where you can do that stuff for them. So, don't just think about the wrestling. Think about how to play around with the Second Life part of it, which is the creation and the creativity and the making things. Not just to sell for $1 million, Linden, because nobody's going to be a millionaire, but just so you can do it, so you can have fun.
Yep. Well said.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been hands down probably the greatest episode that we have done. Alpin, we want to thank you so much for sitting in, and we want to thank you again for agreeing to take all the questions, which will be posted pretty soon once we get all that locked down. Paul, you got anything you want to say before we get out of here?
No, I'm good. Thanks for joining us. Can't wait for the set part 2.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, guys. Thanks a lot.
All right, everybody. We will see you all really shortly, real soon, because we do have some other guests, but we will definitely be seeing you all for part 2 of Alpin Criss, because I know people got a million questions. We will see you all then.